Hello, welcome to the Victory Courses education program. This month we will be talking about a variety of different issues for people living with dementia. My name is Char Johnson. I am the Victory Course education coordinator. I'm also the coordinator for Dementia Friendly Duluth and a certified positive approach to care trainer. I own my own business called Through Their Eyes Dementia Education as well. And so I invite you to join with me as we take a little bit of a travel through the life of someone living with dementia. I'm going to share my screen now, and you should see my PowerPoint coming up. And we'll start right from this slide here. Okay, so you see my little thumbnail up there, but you'll also see the Victory Course education slide is what you should be seeing right now. So before we get started, please mute your phone or your computer if this is a live training. Put your questions in the chat or share them with the victorychorus.org if you are watching this as a recording. You can see my PowerPoint. And a recording of this will also be available on the Victory Course website. I've put both Dementia Friendly Duluth and the Victory Course websites on the slide for you. And you can see our logos there. Today, we will follow the same agenda that we'll follow in all of our trainings. We'll spend a minute with the brain, a minute with the senses. We'll talk about a challenge of the month, caring for the caregiver, and then some idea sharing through either chat or email. And then if you could just ask those questions through chat if this is a live event. So a minute with the brain. This is a puzzling pathway. That's the entitlement. That's how I've titled this slide, because we have this beautiful brain that is both simplistic and very complicated. If you look at the human brain diagram that I put up there, you can see it from the side view where the frontal lobe is. This is the seat of your decision making. The occipital lobe where you are seeing, processing sight, and the temporal lobe where you're actually hearing things and processing sound. But what you don't see in this is the actual area that where dementia is starting its journey through the brain, and that is the hippocampus. In this diagram, you can see the hippocampus, so-called that because it is looks like a little seahorse. And we talked about that in our November training. But what we're going to focus on today is not the hippocampus specifically, but another part of the limbic system, the amygdala. And the amygdalae are the seat of emotion. So as the information comes into the hippocampus, it is processed and sent on to long-term storage, as we talked about before. The amygdala's job is to connect an emotion with that memory so that it's easy to recall. So think of things like fresh baked bread. When you imagine that, you can have that. When you smell that, you know what that is, and it can have an emotional connection to maybe baking bread with your grandparents or with your mom. When you look at something like a pickle, you might get a emotional response to the pickle, not that you're excited about the pickle, but because you have a connection to that taste that stimulates salivation. So the amygdala has a really important job, and it is just another part of the limbic system working in concert with that hippocampus. So the receiver is the hippocampus, the emotions are attached by the amygdala, and then your working memory is in that prefrontal lobe, and we'll talk more about that later, but it will come into play as we talk about doing certain tasks. So I look at it as a beautifully complicated system. Unfortunately, when there are glitches in this system, it can lead to a lot of frustration for the person living with dementia and, of course, for their carers. So let's talk a little bit about the senses. And these are changes beyond normal aging. As any of us age, our senses start to diminish slightly, maybe not even really perceptibly in most cases, but as we age, maybe our eyesight changes, our hearing changes, maybe our ability to feel things with our fingers maybe change, but also our sense of taste and smell changes as well. And so today we're actually going to be talking about that, is the sense of taste and smell, which has of course been a lot in the news because of COVID, that being one of the symptoms, the neurological symptoms of COVID is the loss of taste and smell, or diminished taste and smell. But when you think about how the whole brain operates together, we see a piece of pie. In this case, on this diagram, we see this piece of pie, and there's a flavor that is kind of associated with that pie in our head, what our expectation is about that pie. And then different parts of the tongue have the job of determining whether it's sweet or it's sour, so sweet or savory. The touch tells us that whether, what its consistency and texture is. And then it's all tied into with hearing, because maybe at the crunch of that crust, and everything goes into that whole eating process. So we're using all of our senses as we eat. But in this particular case, we're going to talk specifically about taste and smell. The part of the brain that actually processes taste and smell can be impacted by Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. So as this happens, eating and drinking becomes less pleasurable. So that big T-bone steak doesn't taste as good as it used to, or that veal parmesan isn't hitting the high notes that it used to. And what can happen from that is two different directions. One is that people overeat. They overeat sweets primarily because that sense of sweet is still present in the mouth, or they just eat less because it doesn't taste very good. So I'm not going to bother eating anymore. So those unhealthy eating habits, especially if they're not eating enough, can ultimately lead to unexplained, undesired weight loss, and a lack of having a nutritional deficiency. Additionally, you have a concern of not being able to determine if something is spoiled or not, too. And so that we'll talk a little bit more about that in safety. Monitoring the refrigerator, checking expiration dates, double checking whether food is actually cooked properly or not. Those are all safety concerns as we're thinking about the senses in dementia. If I can't smell that the milk has turned and my eyes are not good enough to read the expiration date, um, and I just might continue to drink that milk long after it's been expired and long after it's safe. If my eyesight has declined to the point where I really can't tell whether a piece of chicken is done, and I can't read a meat thermometer or remember to use a meat thermometer, I might eat underdone food because I can't taste the difference. I can't taste the rawness of it as I'm eating it. Monitoring the refrigerator is very important. And so if you're living with somebody with dementia, you're caring for somebody with dementia, going through that refrigerator frequently, cleaning, labeling food so that you know when it was actually put in there, helping them to do those things, making that equipment available will help keep them safer longer. So let's talk about challenges and how this all connects into the brain information that we talked about and the taste and smell information. So challenges are all about managing our expectations and understanding the communication that we are actually having with our person living with dementia. So here is the challenge of eating. And eating is a huge challenge for people living with dementia. Uh, Again, back to taste and smell. Things don't taste as good, they don't smell as good, so I'm not as hungry. That part of my brain isn't stimulating me to want to eat. Also, I might forget. My ability to sense thirst has diminished as well, and I'm just not hungry, not thirsty. Maybe I think I've eaten, or maybe I'm just not interested. Apathy, depression also plays a part in this as well. So, of course, we want people to eat a healthy diet every day. This is, they don't necessarily need to eat a 2,000 calorie a day diet like maybe they did when they were more active, but keeping a good caloric intake to balance and maintain weight at a healthy level. So fruit, grains, vegetables, and protein, and then matched with some exercise, drinking plenty of water, and having the dairy as tolerated. So if you find your loved one is eating less and less interested in food, keep track of the foods that they are enjoying, and then stock up on those items. You know, sometimes people living with dementia become creatures of habit, so to speak. So they like to eat the same thing all the time, and as long as it's hitting those nutritional notes, then that should be fine. Hopefully, I won't get beat up by any nutritionists here, but I think that you can do the best that you can with somebody living with dementia as the disease progresses. Just like with communication, keep your food simple. Make your plate of food look really delicious so that they're enjoying that more. And protein powders, other supplements added to smoothies can really help maintain that caloric intake and prevent deficiencies. Let's transition into caring for the caregiver. Caring for the caregiver is an integral part of being an excellent caregiver for your loved one. And we oftentimes may think that we don't have enough time to do that. We're too busy taking care of that person. But just taking a few moments out of the day to take some deep cleansing breaths, clearing out a space and time for yourself each and every day, and making that an actual priority um, is very important for your ongoing health. If you're not there, that person doesn't have a caregiver. They don't have a person that they trust and that can help take care of them as they progress through this disease. So it's very important to make sure that you are taking care of yourself. It's just as important as good nutrition. It's just as important as taking care of the loved one that you're dealing with. Okay. Um, Intimacy too is something that humans need, and it becomes a difficult spot for couples because now one of these spouses in the relationship is perhaps responsible for taking care of the other. And so intimacy is oftentimes lost in that connection as a couple, as that person transitions into role of caregiver. So I think it's just important to reinforce that touch is extremely important to maintaining good health. So spending good quality time together. I put a few pictures up here. Go out, take a walk, do some massage, you know, rub each other's hands or feet, or spend some time together. Uh, Spending even just sitting down, having a cup of cocoa or coffee and eating popcorn in the evening, and spending time together to reinforce that good quality relationship. So at this time, I would address any questions that are in the chat. And I thank you for your kind attention today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just say a final thank you very much. And I want to thank the Victory Fund for sponsoring both Victory Course and Dementia Friendly Duluth. And of course, we have to do a shout out to the Alzheimer's Association for all of their great work as they're working to find a cure for Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia. Thank you.